We had a bunch of questions, a bunch of people asking, what are we doing about this 15% fee? And I think this topic is going to be mainly centered around property managers, the hosts, co-hosts, and the implications of this 15% fee change today. So if you are one of those, great. If you're an owner, not much is really going to change for you, except you're going to need to make one very important change. So I wanted to have Ben Coons on, who is CFO, has been in this space for a while. He does our books. He's the CEO and founder of Keystone Bookkeepers, a couple other companies too. I'll pass it over to you, Ben, and we're going to talk strictly numbers on what the implications are of this new Airbnb fee changes. So thanks for joining me, man.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Happy to be here. Before we start, I want to just kind of level set definitions and make sure we're talking about the same thing, because this fee change is going to affect property managers and co-hosts in a different way depending on how they calculate commission and how they handle some of these fees. So when I say gross, this is the way a lot of our managers calculate commission. This is the way you might calculate commission. This is taking your accommodation fare and multiplying it by your commission rate, 20, 25%, whatever it is you're charging. So if that nightly rate times the commission rate, that's what you get as the property manager. And then the host is bearing kind of that full brunt of the channel fees, which
The owner.
until now with Airbnb has been 3%. With Vrbo is 5%, Booking.com is higher, around 14% or so. So that's gross. And then when I say net, that is on the accommodation fare minus the channel fee. So that's taking, your nightly rate minus or subtract the Airbnb fee, the Vrbo fee, whatever it is, and then you're multiplying your commission on that net amount. And again, this change is going to affect you in different ways. On a net basis, if you're doing a net commission, so again, gross or accommodation fare minus the channel fee, you're really going to want to adjust your pricing, obviously, because, now you're going to get hit with that 15.5%. So you're going to want to make sure that you're raising your rates appropriately, whether that's keeping the guest equal, whether that's keeping the homeowner equal. And I'll share this model in a second that kind of looks at, we can look at a few different scenarios of keeping someone whole. But at the end of the day, like you and the homeowner are sharing that fee increase. So it's an easy pitch to your homeowner. It's an easy notification. You're still going to want to do some communication. And I do want to talk about that, like maybe after we dive into the numbers, things to highlight with your homeowners. But it is really just about, setting your PMS to make sure that Airbnb fee is increasing to what you need it to be. And making sure you keep an eye on it, because as everyone else increases that fee, if you're using a dynamic pricing tool, Price Labs, you might see that pressure in those prices increase as everyone else increases along with you.
Yeah, 100%. So I think this is good exercise for everybody. In the comments, guys, let us know, what is your commission structure? Are you charging 20%? And what are you charging that on? Is it on the gross, like I do, so before channel commission, or is it on the net? Like, I know I used to do that in the past, which is, after it's really just the payout that you get from Airbnb. So let us know in the comments, guys, what is your commission structure? That is the first thing that, like, the baseline level of this conversation is your commission structure and how you're charging commission. And then number two is all of us need to increase our prices. If some of us don't, it's going to affect all of us, right? So all of us need to increase our prices because of this new host-only fees. I think we're good there.
Okay. So we talked about net. Again, not a huge impact, assuming you are raising your prices to keep up with that fee increase. On a gross basis, this is really where there's going to be more of a decision, more communication, more strategy. Because as you raise that price, you are going to take home, you as the property manager are going to take home more of the revenue than your homeowner. So homeowner is going to go down, you are going to go up, and some homeowners may not be a fan of that. Some of the savvier ones are going to start to realize, if you're doing what Mike is doing, which is keeping that cleaning income, maybe you've got a damage waiver, maybe you've got some other early check-ins or things going on, that 15.5% is being charged on everything. And then the homeowner is being charged for the full channel fee, even though you, the property manager, are keeping some of that revenue. So we've been talking to some of our clients about this. A couple people have different strategies that they are testing out. I don't think anyone's actually made a decision yet. We still got a month to go before this goes live. One of the things people are talking about is potentially taking some of that channel fee as a management expense. So kind of sharing in that channel fee increase with the homeowner. And again, maybe it's now just a good idea to share the model so we can actually look at some scenarios and kind of talk through it. If that makes sense.
Let's do it.
Okay. So up top here, we've got our inputs. And I try to kind of model out like a generic month because there's multiple reservations, which means you have multiple cleaning fees, multiple management fees, and that does impact, some of these calculations. So again, all this is dynamic, but we've got a $300 nightly rent, $250 cleaning fee, $55 management fee. We've got 4 stays, and we've got average of five nights per stay. So we've got 20 nights rented on Airbnb. We've got a 10% occupancy tax, and we've got a 16.1% accommodation fare increase. I know there's going to be a lot of percentages thrown around, and it really is going to vary depending upon your tax rate, depending upon your average nightly rate, depending upon your cleaning fee. So I really do encourage everyone to actually model out reservations based on your structure to see what that increase is. Down here, we're keeping the 15.5% still on the homeowner. And to start out, because it's kind of an easier model, we'll put both on the net. So this is current and new formula on the net and keeping it at 20% for commission. So we pop down here, and really here's the big impact. So the reason I picked that 16.1% was to keep the guest payment even. So they're going to get the accommodation fare, the cleaning, the management fee, and the taxes. So basically, the guest is paying everything like they normally would. They just don't have that channel fee that they were paying. But we're taking care of that with our increase in accommodation fare. So guest is held harmless. Homeowner is going to go down a little bit. They're going to go down, 1.2%. Manager is going to go down a little bit as well. And unfortunately, Airbnb and the tax agencies are the big winners in here because the tax is calculated just on the revenue, on the gross method, not on net. So again, all else equal, there's not huge dollars here. And I get if you're got a larger home, luxury homes, these dollars might add up to a little bit more. The hope is maybe you can increase that pricing just a little bit, again, to maybe hold your homeowner equal so that they're really not facing any downward pressure there.
So in this scenario, just want to recap. In this scenario, we're charging commission on the net. What we need to do is increase our price by 16%, you're saying, right?
Again, based on this model, it is going to be different because everyone's tax rate is different, because the tax rate really does, because again, I'm solving for that guest payment to be the same. If my tax rate was lower, then I could increase my rates more because the guest is paying less to the tax agency, more to me as the manager.
Right.
So it is all going to vary. And don't forget, you've got different tax rates, maybe with your state, with your city, with your county. And so those should all be added together into your tax rate there.
Yep. Okay. And guys, if you stay on to the end, we will be sharing a version of this at the end of this. So you guys can model it out on your own too. You can figure out, what do your typical months look like for you guys, and then also what your structure is. But we want to share this first so you understand how to use it. So cool.
Okay. So then we'll switch. So we're going to hold everything else the same, and we're just going to change the commission formula. So instead of being on net, we're going to be on gross. And what you're going to see here is homeowner is down about 7%, and then manager is up about 7%. Again, we didn't change any other numbers, so the guest payment is still held the same. We're just changing the numbers that commission is calculated on. And because the manager is taking, again, they're split on the accommodation fare, when we're raising that rate 16%, the manager's revenue is going up by that same amount.
Yeah.
Again, Airbnb tax agency is still the big winner, but in this case, manager is a winner as well. Homeowner is the one who's losing out.
Yeah. So in this case, when you shared this with me, I was like, all right, this was my plan, was to increase my price between 12 and 17%. In this case, we're increasing it by 16%, but it didn't sit well with me that I was making 7% more and the homeowners receiving 7% less. It just didn't really sit well with me. And that's why we're here trying to figure out, all right, what should we do? What changes should we make?
Yeah. And I'll kind of pause here to talk about messaging and things like that, because it is important, the message that you're delivering this to your homeowners and how you're communicating it. And especially if you are diversified off Airbnb. Because typically, if a homeowner is unhappy with you, if they want to leave, they're going to take it back and self manage typically. And what are they going to do? They're going to just turn around and list it on Airbnb. They're not going to deal with the channel manager. They're not going to deal with trying to set up a PMS and list it on Vrbo and Expedia and booking and all that. They're going to go straight to Airbnb. So if you as the manager can say, hey, we've got a diversified booking strategy. So your Airbnb is only 40% of your bookings, only 60% of your bookings. You can kind of negate some of that impact by saying, look, we've got a direct booking site and Stripe only charges 3% for bookings. And that's, 25% of your bookings. So the homeowner knows if they leave, turn around, list it on Airbnb, they're going to lose that 25% booking on a cheaper platform. So it does give you a chance to highlight your diversification and the value that you bring as well. But as you said, Mike, it may not sit well with some of you or with your homeowner that you're going to see this kind of shift. And so again, that's why we put this toggle in here. So, say the homeowner is going to take 12%, manager is going to take 3.5% of that channel fee, and now the numbers get a lot closer. And again, you can play with whatever splits that you want. I don't know if I wouldn't say I'm recommending this for everyone, but I'm saying that this is an option and a lever that you can pull if you need to.
Yeah. So the points I'm pulling away from that is, number one, diversified. Like, you can't only be on Airbnb, right? Obviously, Vrbo and your direct booking site they're better right now, better for the homeowner, better for the manager. So the more that you can promote your Vrbo site, or the more you can promote your direct booking site and just diversify off of Airbnb, the better. I've been singing this for a long time. I've been implementing it myself too. We have about 20% of our properties are direct book, another 20% Vrbo, and then the rest, about 60%, a little bit more than 60% are Airbnb. So that's number one is you guys need to diversify. And then number two on that is what you just shared. And we actually got a question from Gavin too, which was, how do we make this a little bit more even? So what you did there is we're now sharing some of that channel fee, increasing our price still by 16%, but sharing some of that channel fee. And it looks like in this case, the PM actually, I'm losing a little bit more on that.
Yeah, a little bit. And like I said, you can boost, maybe you can push pricing up instead of it being at 16.1, maybe it goes 18%, and all right, now the homeowner is at 1.2%, and you can shift maybe a little bit more to the homeowner, and you can kind of, again, tweak the numbers to kind of find a model that works, better for you. Another option, obviously, here is if you're on gross, you can switch to net. And so this model shows you're currently on gross, you're going to switch with your new method to net, and you end up kind of in that same boat. Again, you're both down a little bit. It's hard not to be unless the guest is paying more, because you do have that increased tax component, but you do end up kind of back in that kind of equal split.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I'll probably increase my nightly rate. And I guess, what do you recommend for somebody like me that's doing gross, right now? Are you recommending, hey, maybe switch to net, or what do you think?
I mean, I think you can always make that change later if you, depending on the pushback and feedback you get from your homeowners. So you are going to want to communicate that this is coming, because they're going to see it on their statements. They're going to see that higher channel fee. They're also going to see it in comparison to other Airbnb bookings, depending on your booking window. Because if you're looking at November, you've probably already got something on the books for Airbnb at the 3% rate. But now you're also probably going to have something that comes in, maybe in November at that 15.5%. So they're going to see, same channel, but a much higher channel fee, and they might not realize that you've increased the rates 15%. So it's really important to let them know the steps you're taking to combat this.
Yeah. 100%. I guess from a bookkeeper's perspective, doing two different commission structures for two different channels, or even doing the, channel fee split, it seems like kind of a pain in the, what, right?
Yes. I think I'm trying to think like how we would do that automated. The channel fee split I know is easier, like in VR platform, which is the system we use. That one I know that we can take care of. The different commission fees on the different channels is going to be harder to automate for sure. I think it's probably possible, but at the same time, it's going to make bookkeeping harder. It's also going to be confusing to your owners.
Yeah.
Like, because they're constantly going to be looking and questioning. I mean, we have people whose owner commission rates haven't changed, and we still get questions like on, what's this rate? Why is this calculated this? And it's like, it's been the same every month. It's the same for every reservation. And we still get questions. You're going to get a lot of questions if you start charging different commission rates or different structures. If it's gross on everything but Airbnb. And then it begs the question, well, what about booking.com? Right? Like that one's already at 14-ish%.
Mm-hmm.
Marriott is also pretty high. Like Hopper is pretty high. So you do have some OTAs that are already in that range. And so maybe if you're already on booking.com, maybe it'd be fine because again, your owners are already used to paying that.
Yep. A couple other questions here. Gavin asked, if you set Price Labs base price 16% higher, does this accomplish the goal? I'll take a first crack at it. Well, first of all, if you do that and it's only for, if you do that on Price Labs, it's going to increase your Vrbo prices as well. So you got to keep that in mind. So the guest is going to be paying way more on Vrbo than they are on Airbnb. Maybe you want that. So what my plan is doing an increase on Inhospitable, my property management system, doing that increase probably between 17 and 20%. I don't know what I want to do yet, but doing that just for Airbnb to at least solve some of this issue. And then the next step for me is figuring out, do I want to do the homeowner channel fee split, or do I want to just go to the net, which I'm kind of leaning towards right now. So anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I agree that you should be doing the percent change for Airbnb only at your PMS, but also in like the month or two following this, you are really going to want to monitor that because Price Labs will kind of, as people increase their pricing, I believe Price Labs will kind of float upwards. So you might need to kind of dial back your Airbnb increase as you see people increase pricing, because you also have, anyone connected to a PMS is going to have that switch in a month, like October 26th. Some people have already been doing it this way because you did have that choice. So some people have already been on this 15.5%. And then December 1st, you have anyone not on a PMS is going to be forced to switch. So you've got kind of a staggered switch where you might have that impact pricing. So again, I'm not a revenue manager. I have talked to a couple just as like kind of anecdotally get some advice and stuff.
Yeah.
But most of it is just like you need to keep monitoring this because it is going to change.
Yep. And that's a really good point. So guys, keep monitoring this. As you roll this out, you'll want to monitor how much you're increasing the prices. I like to use, I use two things for this. Number one, Price Labs. So inside of Price Labs, you'll go to neighborhood data, and then you'll create a comp set, or you'll create competitors, and you'll want to look at where they're priced versus where you're priced. And then if they're booked and if you're booked, right? So that's the number one thing I do to look at that. The second thing that I look at is Rank Breeze. I know some people are like, I don't like to use Rank Breeze. Just use incognito mode. I still use Rank Breeze. It helps me, especially for new listings, figure out, all right, for certain guest counts, for certain dates, where am I ranking on the Airbnb, algorithm? Am I ranking on page 1 or page 2, page 3? And if I'm tracking that and I see after I make this, 17% price increase, if I see like my pricing go way down, my ranking go way down, and then also I'm not getting booked, I'm going to look at, all right, maybe if I make one change and reduce it by 1%, and is that going to help me get back up? on RankBreeze. If you guys aren't familiar with RankBreeze, I think we've got a free 7-day trial. If you go to strsecrets.com/RankBreeze, I'll put it in the chat. You guys can try it out for 7 days. I like it. I still use it. Some people have left it, but for me, helps me track where I'm ranking better, especially at scale, because I got a bunch of properties. So if you want this spreadsheet, just drop spreadsheet in the comments and I will send it to you. Give me a little bit of time this afternoon to send out all these spreadsheets. But if you can, just drop spreadsheet in the chat. And if you don't have a rock star, really good bookkeeper, or maybe if you're doing the bookkeeping on your own, I don't care if you have 2 properties, you need to have a bookkeeper that knows this stuff. And I did my own books for the first 9 properties. I worked with my mom, who's an accountant, on it. She helped me with it. And we used QuickBooks and everything was great until I was spending 10, 20 hours a month doing it. And then from there, I moved to Simplify, which is the company that started VR Platform. Their VR Platform is great software, but they didn't provide the best service. And then that's when I get introduced to Ben. And his team provides exceptional service, in my opinion. I've referred you to probably, I don't know how many people, but it's
track it somewhere.
Yeah. It's nice to work with a company that, 1, responds quickly, 2, you guys can actually explain the data very clearly to us and simply, but you also respond fast. And I've found I never really got that from any financial company, any bookkeeping company. Other businesses I've had, or even, my CPA that I use, it's always a week turnaround time. But for you guys, it's much quicker than that. So I appreciate that. But if you guys need a bookkeeper, just drop Keystone, which is Ben's company, in the chat as well. Ben will see that. He can start a message with you. Answer any questions too. He's always in the Facebook group answering questions for people, especially around, bookkeeping and commission and Airbnb's new changes. So if you're spending more than, I would say, I'm probably spending about 2 hours a month on bookkeeping right now. And that's really just reviewing owner statements. And then we're making some changes right now, going to Top Key. So maybe it's a little bit more this month. But if you're spending more than 3 hours on bookkeeping a month, please have a conversation with Ben and his team, because they can reduce it down to 3 hours. I know Chris Petsy, who's our head of coaching at STR Secrets. He's been using you guys for a while. He's got well over 100 properties. He told me less than an hour on this stuff a month. So it's a really good process that you guys have built. So again, guys, if you need a bookkeeper, drop Keystone. Ben will reach out. And then if you want this spreadsheet that we shared, which is going to break down the numbers, just drop spreadsheet in the chat. We'll send it to you and then allow you to take it and make your own adjustments. And if you joined a little bit late, the adjustments that you'll need to make are going to be around your occupancy tax for your areas, your commission fee, but then also your commission structure. So if you're charging your commission on the gross, which is before the channel commission, or the net, which is after the channel commission, and figure out your messaging to your owners as well on, if you go one way or the other. Maybe you stay put. Maybe you're still charging gross, but you're going to be making 8% more and the homeowner is going to be making 8% less. And then they view their owner report and they see that there's a 15% channel fee this month. And last month it was 3.5. You're going to have a tough conversation. So you're going to have to be ready for that conversation and ready to have a new path for them. Even if you have 2 or 3 properties, if you're spending more than 3 hours a month on bookkeeping and you plan on adding more properties, I highly recommend hiring a bookkeeper that knows trust accounting, especially if you're the one accepting the funds and accepting the money. There's so many transactions. There's so many entries. There's, the accommodation fare, there's the pet fee, there's the management fee, there's the extra guest fee, there's the linen fee, there's the resort fee. There's all these things need to be categorized properly in each transaction if you're doing, trust accounting, so that there's clarity and you can clearly explain to your owners where all the income is going and how you're charging commission on it and everything too. So Yeah, that's about all I had. That was kind of my rant. Ben, is there anything else you want to share with everybody just on this big change?
As I've said before, model out your own scenario. Send me a Facebook message, send me an email if you've got it. I'm happy to help talk about your specific structure. I'm happy to review a model or bounce any ideas off to make sure that you're prepared for this. So thanks again, Mike, for having me on. Always love doing these and love the partnership with you guys.
Yep, likewise. So, guys, that's it for today. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to improve a listing. So, what are the things you can do when you're taking on a property from Vacasa or Evolve, or you're taking on a new property that's been underperforming? Maybe you did the UI method, maybe it's been a referral, but what are the things that you can do to improve a listing? And then how can you estimate how much they're going to make, how much more they're going to make by working with you? And so, I'm onboarding 5 new properties right now. I just signed another one yesterday. I'm going to break down exactly what I did. Guy was using Vacasa, didn't know that there was any other option really at the beach. I met him through doing the UI method and then just showed him, hey, here's what we're going to do in order to get you better ratings and then get you better income. And so I'll break that down live next week.